Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on Thursday evening, it's a travel day for us on Fridays. We're trying to get ahead of the game. Been a busy day. I've actually recorded 2 podcast episodes today. I did a second episode of I Am Steve R today for this week. I hadn't done it in 3 years. I've done 2 this week. I don't know why I ever let that podcast kind of slip away, but sometimes writing books and everything else, something's got to give. And it did for a while, but I'm back. And many of you kind of like hearing me talk about real life stuff. You can do so on the podcast, I Am Steve R, which is mainly about recovery. Today's episode was about my friend Beth Lafferty, who was murdered several years ago, and her killer is on death row in Mississippi. And I began to kind of think about her after yesterday's news where we had an execution here in Mississippi. I know that's kind of a morbid way to begin the show, but I miss Beth. And, we had some history, and, she was a big part of my early recovery, and she deserved a lot better. So I wanted to speak about that, about dealing with resentment and things of that nature. So all of that understood, here we are. Here we are as we get ready for another weekend of college football. Eager to get down to the swamp. We'll stop. Let's see. We'll leave tomorrow, around 1 o'clock or so, and we'll head down to Theodore, Alabama. We'll see Mississippi State commitment Davin Young down there and get you guys some pictures and video. That'll be available over at genespage.com, the Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports on Monday. And I look forward to seeing them. That's the better part of this job is I can kind of coordinate some travel to go cover Mississippi State games and also work in some recruiting stuff. And, let's see. I guess this will be the 4th state this year that I've covered a Mississippi State commitment. I'm proud to say that, right? And we get out and go. And so looking forward to seeing him. We'll check out J.J. Bush while we're there. He's committed to Missouri. I expect that to stick. But, hey, we'll check him out. Maybe get a few pictures for our friends up at Power Mizzou. Be good neighbors to them. And, we got a top 10 list today I was hoping not to have to do. Ace Frehley dies today. We'll talk more about that later in the show. Give you my final thoughts on Mississippi State, Florida, but also to some other recruiting news in men's basketball and baseball. So, packed show today. For those of you listening on Thursday night, good evening. For those of you listening on Friday, good morning. Make sure you're wearing maroon. Should be an interesting weekend for Mississippi State sports. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. We love Bulldog Burger Company. We do. We've loved them for a long time. Consistently delivering an extraordinary dining experience day in, day out, night in, night out. Don't overthink it. If you ask the kids, where do you want to eat? They're going to say Bulldog Burger Company. Just go ahead and save yourself the trouble and defer to the kids. If you're not feeling like a burger, let me encourage you. Let everybody else enjoy those great restaurant quality hamburgers. You can get that BLT salad. I prefer it grilled. You may like it fried. I'm not judging. It's up to you. But so many great things to choose from. If you're a newbie to Bulldog Burger Company, get the Bulldog. You can't go wrong with the Bulldog. Maybe add some bacon to it, some jalapenos. You kind of tailor it the way you want. But you can't go wrong with the Bulldog itself. No doubt about it. But if you want to branch out a little bit and kind of get to know the wild side, maybe go get the Smokehouse, the Freshman 15, the Bryant, the Lauren. There's a lot of different options to choose from. You owe it to yourself to eat well and get the spring rolls as your appetizer. Make the world a more beautiful place because they make you and everybody around you better looking. Get that chocolate or Nutella shake to go. They may even have a special shake this week. You may want to ask your server. And you can ride that ride home with a smile. Get that shake to go. I always order it right before I ask for the check. Hey, before we leave, I want to get that shake to go. And then as I pay the check, I'm already enjoying that chocolatey goodness. You owe it to yourself to treat yourself every now and again. You can do so at one of their 3 great locations, University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowood area, Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. Okay. Let's jump right in to our SEC football preview. We're going to open up Saturday morning with LSU and Vandy. Now, this is an interesting game, right? I haven't done the research on this, but when is the last time Vanderbilt's been favored in a game against LSU, regardless of venue, right? This one's going to be played up there in Nashville at First Bank Stadium. I suspect there will be a lot of LSU folks there. Oh, Nashville's a great town. I love Nashville. It's one of my favorite southern cities, probably my third favorite. Starkville's number 1, New Orleans is 2, and then Nashville. I love going to Nashville. It's a lot of fun. So, beer is probably going to be in short supply this weekend with the Bayou Bengals showing up with their thirst for a good time. So I expect there'll probably be a lot of LSU folks there. I don't know how many Vandy folks will turn out, but it'll be a big crowd of Tiger fans there. I just don't know if I believe in Vanderbilt. Now, that's not in any way to be disrespectful to Vanderbilt. They gave Alabama all they wanted, and I think we can all agree this is not a dominant Alabama team. And Vandy probably exploited some of the same things they did a year ago. It felt like last year that Vanderbilt has had an answer for everything Alabama threw at them. Not so much this year. I think the better athletes won. That's not to say that Clark Lee and his staff haven't upgraded the talent level at Vanderbilt. They have. They're ranked in the top 20. Again, 5-1. But I'm going to take LSU in a minor upset. Isn't that weird to say? Commodore is favored by 2.5, which is basically the home advantage, the 3-point swing there. Over or under in this game is 48.5. LSU's been very challenged offensively. They're still ranked 10th in the country, but that is a very, very pedestrian offense. If Vanderbilt is able to get an early lead here, I think LSU could be in trouble. I just think that LSU's skill people and the back seven of that defense, I think that they can match up with Vanderbilt exceptionally well. And then we'll see how things go. I mean, you look at Pavia too. I mean, he's also the run threat. With the speed and girth on that LSU defense, I don't know that the quarterback run is the way to go, right? Like Eric Nussmeier's, kind of having a very average year. He's been banged up. 1,413 yards passing, 9 touchdowns against 5 picks. But at some point, you just feel like the Tigers are going to roar. I know they haven't run the ball well. It's been a bone of contention throughout the year. I just think perhaps this is the game that LSU puts it together. It's just my opinion. And tickets for this game are, exceptionally expensive too. You go spend the weekend in Nashville and go check in an SEC football game. Yeah, you're going to have to pay for it. But let's take LSU again. It's crazy. LSU's ranked higher. Vanderbilt is favored, right? Things don't always make sense. But if you're in Vegas, they often make dollars. And the people in Vegas typically know what they're talking about. All right, Oklahoma is on the road at South Carolina. Now, the good thing for Oklahoma is this is a day game. That makes a lot of sense, right? If you're Oklahoma, I wouldn't want to play a night game at Williams-Brice. It gets crazy up there. They get the LED lights flowing, get Sandstorm flowing, and those people do a great job creating a great home field advantage. Now, Mateer did not have a great game last week against Texas. A little bit of the turnover bug, too. I just don't know what to expect from this South Carolina team. They're 3-3, 1-3 in the SEC. They got some ground they can make up in non-conference play, but you still got Clemson. It's a rivalry game, and Beamer's done pretty good in those games. But you start beginning to think South Carolina desperately needs to get a win somewhere, or bowl eligibility will be a real challenge. Because what's left on this schedule, right, before they get to the final 2 non-conference games, you got 4 consecutive teams ranked in the top 15 right now. Oklahoma, Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M. I don't expect South Carolina to win against Bama, Ole Miss, or Texas A&M. So that makes this game feel like a must-win game. If South Carolina is to get bowl eligible, I think they need to win this one. But I'm going to take the Sooners. Mateer is back. There's been no question about that. I just think in the end, the Oklahoma defense will be the difference in this game. The Sooners favored by 5.5. I think that's probably fair. I don't think it's a blowout game. It's probably a close game. Oklahoma looked kind of pedestrian last week. I think they'll bounce back this week. Mateer obviously needs to play better. But, we'll take the Sooners and the points in Columbia at Williams-Brice. One of my favorite SEC rivalry games will be played at 2:30. Texas A&M and Arkansas. This is in, I guess it's not in Jerry World this year. I guess I've missed the boat there. But nevertheless, this A&M defense is for real. And it's taken us a couple of weeks. Like when they shut down Auburn, we said, well, the Auburn offense has just kind of been kind of ho-hum. So maybe that Texas A&M defensive showing was really a product of the ineptitude of the Auburn offense. Then they shut us down, and we've scored on everybody. And then last week, they beat up Florida. Outside of that first quarter, that Texas A&M defense, from the second quarter on, pretty much read Florida the riot act. Arkansas, again, I felt last week had the element of surprise against Tennessee. You had 2 weeks to prepare. You changed some wrinkles and show some formations and personnel groups maybe you haven't seen before because you made a coaching change. And I do think they surprised Tennessee a little bit. But when we got towards the end of that game and it became closing time, Tennessee did what they wanted to do, and they really, really beat up Arkansas. A&M is favored by 7.5. I'm going to take the Aggies, even though, listen, it's tough to win on the road, and it's really tough to win by 2 scores on the road in the Southeastern Conference. I think Arkansas probably kind of returns to earth this week. I know some people are like, oh, Arkansas's got it turned around. No, they don't. They're 2-4, 0-2 in the league. It's going to be tough, man. I mean, it is. And, again, you look at A&M, are they good enough to make the playoff? Absolutely. Are they good enough to win an AFL championship? I don't think so. I just don't think – I think Marcel Reed at some point is going to blow up and give somebody a game. I just think that's probably – there'll be that one big moment that's too big for him. And so, switching over to Arkansas again, they get off to a 2-0 start, score 108 points, 108-21 against Alabama A&M and Arkansas State. And, man, they have not stopped anybody since then. 4 consecutive losses. Everybody has scored 32 points or more, including Memphis. The Notre Dame game was an absolute debacle. And then you put up some points last week, but you still didn't shore up the defense. You give up 34 to Tennessee. I just don't think you're going to be able to score enough this week against A&M to make this thing competitive. And then again, you look down the stretch here for Arkansas. Again, 2-4, should be 2-5 after this weekend. So you got to find a way to avoid 2 more losses. Well, you got LSU, Texas, and Missouri to close out the slate. You got Auburn and Mississippi State coming up. You probably feel like you got to win both of those games just to be in the discussion. And obviously, I think it makes life a lot easier on Arkansas administration if the Razorbacks don't make a bowl game. And I think this week is probably such a big swing week for them. If they win this week, then it becomes a lot more probable. If they lose this week, I think it's nearly impossible. So we're going to take the Aggies and the points. Ole Miss at Georgia. Now, the thing that's interesting to me is I can't find anybody outside of the Ole Miss fan base that believes that Ole Miss is very good. I think they're pretty good. I do. And I think Trinidad Chambliss has made them a much better team. And I give Lane Kiffin a lot of credit. There was a lot of people, Austin Simmons for Heisman, which was a joke. A joke. Nothing against that kid. It's really about those people hyping him up before he's ready. He's a first-time starter, man. The kid's not ready for that kind of pressure. Neither was Arch Manning. And Arch Manning was bred to win a Heisman Trophy at some point, and he still may. But Ole Miss people do it to themselves, man. They do. Everybody is the next big thing. Let's go print bumper stickers and T-shirts, and, it's crazy, man. Georgia didn't play exceptionally well last week. Defensively, they did, outside of the couple drives there for Auburn in the first half. But the second half, they kind of did whatever they wanted to do, as did Georgia. I think if I'm Ole Miss, you got to come out hot here, and Lane Kiffin typically does. But it's on both sides of the line. Like, it can't be a 7-7 or 10-10 game and expect to win, because Kirby and those guys in Athens, they do such a great job making defensive adjustments and making you uncomfortable. I think Ole Miss has to have a lead at half to make this a real game. I just think in the end, the more talented team is Georgia, and they're playing at home. And again, you look at this, Ole Miss, it's almost very eerily reminiscent of some of these Ole Miss teams of the past, right? They kind of run through non-conference and just blow people out. They've done some of that, obviously, but they also played Kentucky and Arkansas, who may end up being the two worst teams in the league when it's all said and done. Then they play LSU, which we don't – listen, LSU's not a great team, right? But Ole Miss wins a football game. You give them credit. Ole Miss wins the game against a very athletic defense. A little bit of a letdown last week, kind of a trap game. Washington State makes it interesting, has a chance late, kind of a desperate chance late, to tie or win the game. Ole Miss wins at 24-21. I really thought Ole Miss would handle that better. But when you have the, quote, rivalry game against LSU, then you're traveling to Georgia, and right in the middle of that, you got Washington State coming in. It kind of set up well for Washington State. They just couldn't close the deal. Now you go to Georgia. But when I look at this Ole Miss schedule, a lot of people are saying, hey, can Ole Miss make the playoff? Well, you better believe it. Yeah, sure they can. I mean, you look at it right now, they control their own destiny. The next 2 weeks are going to be very important for them, though. At Georgia, at Oklahoma. I don't think you can afford to drop them both. And you say, well, can a 10-2 Ole Miss team get in there? Well, I don't know the strength of schedule favors them, because I don't think LSU is done losing. It's a quality win for now. But that's the only ranked opponent you beat so far. And so if you get to the end of the year, and like LSU is your only, quote, ranked win, will LSU still be in the top 25 by then? I don't think so. And if they are, they're certainly not in the top 10. And so these next 2 weeks, I think, define Ole Miss's season. And I think in the event they drop those two, they'll probably drop a third, because you still got South Carolina. They'll wax the Citadel. Then you got Florida and Mississippi State. So the last road game after Oklahoma is the Egg Bowl. And so, wouldn't that be something to give Ole Miss their third loss and then achieve bowl eligibility for the Bulldogs? Wouldn't that be cool, right? All right, Mississippi State, Florida, we'll save that for our final segment. Texas at Kentucky, this will be an interesting game. How does Texas kind of handle some success? Yeah, they're 4-2, but they have not been, necessarily, a class in offensive execution by any stretch. Kentucky has a way of making things weird. And again, it's not a great Kentucky team. They're 2-3, 0-3 in the SEC. Longhorns are nearly a 2-touchdown favorite. 13.5 is the spread right now. 6 p.m. kick. How invested are the Wildcat fans in this? You know what I'm saying? There'll be some folks that are tried and true that'll be there. But like some other teams in this league, you're counting games if you're a Kentucky fan. And a lot of people want Mark Stoops gone. Done a lot of great things there. I just think there's some people that'll never forgive him for the Texas A&M situation. He signed the memorandum of understanding, and the next thing you know, all hell broke loose in College Station. They didn't want Mark Stoops. They get Mike Elko. Proved to be a good move for them. I don't know that it's been a good one for Kentucky. But again, you start counting this thing down, they're 2-3. They've lost 2 games in a row, both of them of the SEC variety. Their only wins are Toledo, which was a very, very interesting game, and they beat Eastern Michigan. They've lost to Ole Miss, South Carolina, Georgia. You got Texas this weekend. Then you host Tennessee. Then you're at Auburn, Florida, Tennessee Tech, at Vandy, at Louisville. And as we discussed before, which, if any of those games outside of Tennessee Tech, are they going to be favored in? I would say none. So you got 3 ranked opponents left, and you got some other teams that are as good or better than you, and you got Hugh Freeze probably coaching for his job. Rivalry game on the road. It looks like a losing season, which is what people forecasted. Now, what will Kentucky do? Similar to the Mississippi State situation, I think Kentucky probably has John Summerall lined up. If they don't, it's not a good year to hire a football coach. It's not. Now, John Summerall would probably take your job. People are like, well, he would take Auburn or Florida. Maybe, right? Maybe. I don't know that John Summerall would get the opportunity to go to Florida. You've had Billy Napier come from the Sun Belt. I think you've got to go get a proven Power 4 coach, Scott Strickland. So it'll be interesting. Kentucky's got this big buyout to pay. Do they care enough about football to pay it? Tennessee to Alabama, again, as you know, it's the same old crap. Tennessee to Alabama. I like Alabama in the game because they're at home. Alabama's favored by 7.5. This is the one pick that I probably waffled on the most because I think Tennessee can make this thing really close. I think Tennessee could keep it a one-score game. I just think Alabama at home will find a way to close this thing out. Ty Simpson's playing exceptionally well. Aguilar is too, but here as of late, he's had some issues, throwing interceptions. Ball security was great the first few weeks, maybe not so much as of late. So I feel like I'm going to give Alabama the benefit of the doubt. Bishop got banged up in the game against Arkansas, and so that maybe hampers a Tennessee running game. So I kind of talked myself into it. We're going to go with Alabama. I'm pulling for Tennessee, but I'm picking Alabama. Missouri and Auburn. Battle of the Tigers. That'll be our nightcap game at 6:45. That'll close us out. Both of these teams kind of had some disappointing results here as of late. And you think about Missouri, nobody really talks about Missouri. It's almost like we forget they're in the league. They lose to Alabama 27-24. And if you watch that game, you know how crazy it got there at the end. One thing's for sure is Drinkwitz's guys are not going to quit. They're going to keep fighting. They've only had 2 games this year where they even really had any adversity. At home against South Carolina and home against Alabama. All those ended up being less than 10-point differentials. Now you're going to Auburn, a very angry Auburn team. An Auburn team that feels like that the world is against them, and sometimes that can be a rallying cry for a team and a coaching staff. It's just like, hey, we're all we got, we're all we need, right? You've heard that before. And I just wonder how Auburn is going to handle this. How will Hugh Freeze handle this? Big 2 weeks, right? That's what everybody talked about. Big 2 weeks, Georgia, Missouri. Well, you dropped the first half of that, and it almost feels like maybe the league and the world is out to get you, And they've already made, they had the issue with Oklahoma, which was wrong. And there were some statements made about that. And Auburn, I think, was in the right. Then you have this happen, and you could argue some of these calls that Ken Williamson made that they disagree with were the right calls. But the thing that I think about, what message are you sending your team, right? What message is it? It's like, hey, even with our best effort, man, they're not going to let us win. Even if that's not exactly the phrasing you use, that's kind of the message you convey. And Drinkwitz and those guys in Missouri want to get to the playoffs just like everybody else. It's going to be interesting. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but when I work through just kind of like my own feelings, I'm going with Mizzou. I think Missouri, when I look at maybe how things have gone the last week, Missouri seems to have things a little more buttoned up. It kind of feels, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, it just kind of feels like a carnival-type atmosphere at Auburn right now. There's just a lot going on, a lot of racket, And I think Missouri will likely be the more focused team. Now, we'll see what happens. Hugh Freeze at times has coached exceptionally well when his back has been against the wall. And when you begin to think about this aspect of it, you lose this one, it could go off the rails pretty easy. Now, looking at Mizzou's schedule, once you get through Auburn, and they're a talented team, I don't care what their record is, then you got to go to Vanderbilt. You feel like you've got enough people to win that one, and then you've got Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. Road trip to Arkansas to close it out. Could this be a 10-win Mizzou team? I think you kind of have to seriously consider that, but I begin to wonder a little bit. The quality of schedule is better than that of Ole Miss. It's true, because you get Alabama and Texas A&M. You find a way to get a couple dubs in there that maybe people aren't expecting, you could slip into the playoffs. But you could derail all that at Auburn this weekend. So you got to stay focused. But you got 3 of your final 5 opponents ranked in the top 25. 3 of your final 6, excuse me. So you can ill afford to lose the game you're expected to. No doubt about it. On the Auburn side of things, and this is where I think it gets interesting, especially considering the coaching climate within the conference and around the country. I explained to you guys I wouldn't want to go hire a football coach this year. I wouldn't. I don't know that I would want to do that even if I was at Florida or Auburn or someplace like that with a ton of tradition and a ton of resources. I don't know there's a lot of great coaches out there. You're going to have to go overpay and rip somebody away from another great job. There's not an Urban Meyer coming up from Utah. It's not. There's not a Kirby Smart, just kind of hanging around out there. But Auburn opened up 3-0, and a lot of people thought, okay, we're doing okay. However, offensively against South Alabama, we didn't do a good job. But we'll grant you that. But since they've got in the SEC play, it's been 3 straight losses. But every one of them has been right there. And I think that's probably the message if you're the Auburn coaching staff. Is like, guys, we got 1 or 2 plays here or there. And, yeah, we've had some calls go against us, but look at the plays we didn't make. You know what I'm saying? I think you can redirect that. And, man, this is an Auburn team, I think, down the stretch actually has a pretty favorable schedule. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Auburn go on a run. They got to figure some things out. But you get Missouri this week. That's the highest rated opponent you have before the Iron Bowl. You go to Arkansas. You go Kentucky at home, go to Vanderbilt, Mercer, and then the Iron Bowl. You find a way to win this week, you can kind of get right in a hurry. I think there's a lot of pressure on Auburn to do just that. If you don't make a bowl game this year, if you're Hugh Freeze, you're probably done. Probably so. And we'll see how things kind of play out. So your winners, in my estimation, is LSU in a minor upset, Oklahoma to cover and win on the road at South Carolina, Texas A&M to do the same at Arkansas, Georgia to hold serve at home and cover. We talk about State and Florida late. Texas and Kentucky, I'm going to take Texas and the points. We'll take Alabama and the points at home. I think that Tennessee-Alabama game could absolutely go either way. I won't be surprised no matter what happens. And then Missouri at Auburn, I'm taking Missouri. Missouri is favored by 1.5 on the road at Auburn. This is another one I hem-hawed about, not quite as much as I did with Tennessee and Alabama, because I think Tennessee, Alabama, you've got 2 teams who are similarly situated. That's not the case in the Battle of Tigers. But again, what kind of fight are we going to see from Auburn at home, angry with Hugh Freeze, who at times has been really good offensively, really not so much at Auburn. But sometimes you just got to go out there and let it loose. Jackson Arnold, I think, handicaps him a little bit in the passing game. But this could be a wild game. I truly believe that. And we'll be listening to it on our drive back from Gainesville. But, again, great SEC weekend, and it's all conference games. You got to love that, right? All conference games. All right, time for today's Close with Blair Player of the Day. Yeah, that's right. It's going to be Blake Shapen. We'll tell you why after the read here. Blair Chandler is the only name to know in the mortgage loan origination business. Don't overthink it. Don't complicate it. There's no need to shop around. You're going to get the best deal possible from Blair Chandler. 25 years of experience in this industry, and it is a meat grinder of an industry. Nobody stays in this deal by accident for 20-plus years. As a guy that was in the mortgage industry for a while, I can tell you dealing with underwriting alone is enough to drive you crazy. But Blair knows all the guidelines. Blair knows the best way to construct your loan to give you the best chance of approval. Whether you're looking to refinance, buy a home, maybe get a second mortgage, I don't know your needs, but Blair can get you to the closing table when so many others can't. A bulldog through and through, but he doesn't discriminate. I know we have some rival fans that listen to the show. He'll do business with you too. Equal opportunity lender. 601-500-2344. Only number you need to know. Just save it in your phone as Mortgage Guy. Get the life hack right. Get that pre-qualification letter so you're not shopping above your means. Get your real estate agent into hyperdrive once they know your financing is approved, right? Whether you're looking for your first home, your next home, or your retirement home, Blair Chandler at closewithblair.com. Okay. Our player of the day is Blake Shapen. In order for us to go pull off this upset, which seems kind of silly, we're 4-2, they're 2-4, but they're the better team. They're playing at home. I think the spread is a bit thick. My honest opinion. If we can protect Blair and Blake, got to protect Blair too. I don't think we need to have 5 offensive linemen around. He's a pretty big guy himself. But we got to keep Blake standing upright. This Florida team has not been a great pass rushing team. They had a really good game against Texas. I think it was 6 sacks in that game. They've got 9 total. So they have not necessarily been just absolutely pass rush happy. Now, Ron Roberts, a great defensive coordinator, been around a long time. Well respected within this industry. He'll have a game plan. We have to go out there with the benefit of the open date, having put some new wrinkles and formations perhaps they haven't seen in. We got to get out quick. And I've been told we've had a really good week of practice. So we'll see how things go. But Blake Shapen needs to play big in big games. This is a big game when you think about the totality of our schedule because it's the next game. It's a game that gets you 1 win away from bowl eligibility with 5 to play. Beginning of the year, I thought this was going to be a really tough game for us. It is going to be a tough game for us. But as we talk about all the time, you never know what your opponent's going to look like by the time you get to game week. This is probably the best time for us to face them, right? They're beat up. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're beat up mentally, emotionally, and it's been quite the week in the Florida newspapers about the status of Billy Napier. So we need Blake Shapen to go out there and play his best in order for Mississippi State to win this football game. Okay, time for today's top 10 list. Brought to you as always by Calido Guitars. That's Calido Guitars.com. A Mississippi State-owned and operated guitar shop, and really they specialize just in stringed instruments. Basically anything you need you can find there. Based out of Lake Jackson, Texas, you can stop by their expansive showroom and see all the great toys that your heart desires. If you can't make it out there, let me encourage you to visit them on the World Wide Web at CalidoGuitars.com, and you can peruse all of the great items, whether you're a beginning guitar player or you're a professional guitar player, and everything in between is available at Calido Guitars. This is a real guitar shop. Okay, this isn't like a music store that just sells a few guitars. These people are guitar players. So it's a guitar player's shop. The holidays are coming up. Maybe you got a guitar player in your family. You're thinking, what do you want to get them? Maybe this is the way to go. Some new accessories, perhaps a new guitar. Maybe it's time to upgrade the rig. Let me give you some incentive to do so. Promo code BSR. You know it well. That gets you a 10% discount right out of the gate. If that wasn't enough, we'll get you free shipping. We'll get you no sales tax unless you live in the state of Texas. And they'll make a 5% donation to the Bulldog Excellence Fund based on your purchase price. What a great incentive to do business. You're benefiting by working with a great guitar shop, but you're also getting the Kinfolks discount by being a listener to this show and Mississippi State benefits. It's a win-win-win all the way around. You win, they win, Mississippi State wins. Great opportunity for you. I cannot recommend them highly enough. I have a guitar from Kalita Guitars along with a great gig bag. If you're in the market for a gig bag or a case, you can find that stuff too. Really anything guitar related you can find at Kalita Guitars. All right, as I mentioned, Ace Frehley died today. And, man, it sucks, man, so bad, right? It just sucks. Ace Frehley was the first rock hero of my life. And in many respects, outside of my Uncle Warren, who was also a guitar player, Ace Frehley was like my first hero. Before I even really knew what sports was, before I really got involved in following sports and things of that nature, it was Kiss. My favorite member of Kiss was Ace Frehley. Space Ace. Thought he was the coolest, man. Had a chance to meet him out in Tulsa, Oklahoma a few years back. Out at Rocklahoma, he played, I guess, the third stage at Rocklahoma. Dana and I get back to the casino. Dana goes to the restroom. I make the corner right there by the slots, and there's Ace Frehley in a suit. Much shorter than I expected him to be. Didn't expect to see him that night. Had a chance to say hello, shake his hand, and say thanks. Then I had a chance to watch him open for Alice Cooper there in Tupelo at the Bancorp South Arena. What a great night that proved to be. Me and the homie Sam Denton, front row. Got some great pictures. I posted one on Twitter and one on Facebook, different pictures. I got a bag full of gear right over here to my left. I got to find a way to put it up now. You know, right after Ace played the Shock Me solo, he handed me an Ace Frehley guitar pick. I got his towel, you know, so I guess if you guys have a healthy ovum out there somewhere, that I possess the DNA of Ace Frehley on this sweaty towel, you know, we can go clone us an Ace Frehley for future generations. But it was special to me, man. It was. And in many respects, I am who I am, you know, because of music. And really it all started with Ace Frehley and Kiss. So, yeah, part of my youth is gone, and I've had several of you that have reached out and said, man, I thought of you. I know Ace was big for you. Man, he was. Ace Frehley was like superhuman to me. He was like a superhero. And I suspect that's the case for many kids of the 70s. You know, and I'll be honest, like Gene Simmons scared me. He did. I liked him, but like when I saw them perform like on TV, like I didn't like looking at Gene. And Paul was like Paul had that open vest thing, you know, showing off the hair on his chest. I don't know. I didn't really care for that. But to me, Ace was just like this guy, man. It's like, you know, it's just, there are just certain musicians in your life that you identify with. And for me, one of those from the early stages of my existence is Ace Frehley. So we're going to celebrate the music of Ace today. We got a lot of solo stuff. We got some stuff from the Kiss solo album. We got some Frehley's Comet stuff. So again, we'll celebrate this with a heavy heart. Number 10 on our list, and really, I mean, anything you put out here would be great, right? You know what I mean? It's just anything you put out would be. You can hardly go wrong with Ace. I mean, you just can hardly go wrong with Ace, and. So we're going to go with Outer Space, and that's a song some of you may not know as well, and that's okay. You know, there's a lot of people kind of lost track of Ace after a while, but that's off the Anomaly album, released back in 2009. I think you'll have some fun with it, you know. Number 9 from the Kiss solo album, and I think the Ace Frehley album was the best of the solo albums, and yes, I admit to being biased. But kind of a blues track here. It's Speeding Back to My Baby. You've heard that riff 1,000 times. You just maybe haven't heard the same tempo. The latest Ace Frehley album was released just here last year. And I dig it, man. I do. It's the title track off the 2024 release, 10,000 Volts. 10,000 Volts, your number 8 track today. Number 7. Another song, too, that kind of came a little bit later in the catalog, and it's off the Ace Frehley Spaceman album. And I believe that's what he was touring with when we saw him in Tupelo. I think that's right. But we're going Rockin' with the Boys. And it's kind of one of those things, too. It's like your girl thinks you're out cheating, but you're not. You're just hanging out playing music with your boys. Number 6, off the solo album. And a lot of people think this may be the best track of the solo album for Ace. I think on the guitar side it is. It's Rip It Out. Number 6 on your list today. Number 5, we had to mix in a couple of Kiss songs. And even though Gene Simmons did the vocal on this, it was Ace Frehley that wrote the Kiss classic Cold Gin. It's what keeps us together, right? You know it well. You've heard it a million times. And on Ace's solo jaunts, he played those Kiss songs that he wrote, which is super cool. Number 4, the title track, I guess technically this was an Ace Frehley solo album, but it was kind of like in the middle of all the Frehley's Comet stuff. For some reason, Second Sighting from Ace the Frehley's Comet is not out there. But Ace did an album called Trouble Walking, and there's a cover on there, Do Ya, Too Young to Die is really good, Shot Full of Rock, Fractured 3 is pretty cool too. But Trouble Walking, the title track, man, I love the guitar on this one. This is one of those ones that really gets me jacked up. I love it, man, because I am trouble walking. Love it, man. Number 3, a song from the first Frehley's Comet album, and it was a big hit. And I'm trying to remember here. I'm trying to remember this. I think this is a Russ Ballard track. I think that's right. Yes, it was Russ Ballard wrote this, and Ace recorded it, and it was a big hit too. And it's kind of about people of addiction, right? It's like, people that are kind of walking the streets, whether it be depressed or homeless or whatever. End of the night, it's kind of a sympathetic song about those folks. Number 2, and this is one of those ones that was always a showstopper, and the guitar pick that I have was after he played this song. And, of course, that's when he had all the theatrics and the flaming guitar, and it was incredible. But it's Shock Me from Kiss. And Ace did the vocals on this one too, wrote it. But it's one of those memorable, if you've ever seen Kiss with the classic lineup, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But number 1, and I remember when this came, man, when the first Frehley's Comet album came out, I was so jacked. Came back in '87. I was in high school, and I was so incredibly excited because it's like, okay, Ace is back. Well, and then like the first single was Rock Soldiers, and Ace even says that in the solo. Because Ace is back and he told you so. Rock Soldiers is one of those anthemic songs. I think it's probably one that everybody would like. If you like rock music, I think you'll love Rock Soldiers. But yeah, again, these kinds of things make you consider your own mortality. We've had such a wild couple of days. John Hendricks, my friend, the owner and longtime operator of the Lodge, passed away after a long battle with cancer. Coach M.C. Miller from Louisville and Noxubee County, a legendary coach, he passes away. And now Ace Frehley passes away. I mean, these things happen, man. These are people that you know. And M.C. Miller was so great to me when I first got into this industry. And I don't know that I've had better supporters on the retail front than John Hendricks. Man, they sold thousands of books for me at the Lodge. I mean, thousands upon thousands of books at the Lodge. It's incredible, man. And then Ace Frehley. And so, it's like all these things begin to happen, and you begin to start thinking, you got to make sure you tell everybody you love them. I mean, I'm the kind of person, man, I've learned the hard way to live with love in your heart. There's so many things out there that want to teach you to hate, and you got to hate people and, hate things and hate principles and hate causes. But, man, the thing that I've learned about that is even though we may disagree on stuff, man, we're still people. We're still people. And when people around you die, you begin to start thinking about how grateful you are that every day's a gift. Now, Ace's situation, he fell like in his studio a couple of weeks ago, had a brain bleed and never recovered from it. And he was on life support and a ventilator, and they called the family in and you removed all life-saving mechanisms this evening. And so now here we are. But none of us are promised the bedside vigil. I'm promising you. And I've had some people kind of mention that to me, and maybe we'll just keep driving that home. You are not guaranteed the chance to lay in your deathbed and look around the room and tell everybody you love them. That didn't necessarily mean you're going to have like 2 days to go get on Facebook and make a big post and then love everybody's response and tell them goodbye. You're not guaranteed that. So make sure the people that you love know that you love them today. And if there is any bitterness between you and other people, let me tell you, find a way to forgive. Because life is long and death is certain, and I would hate to think that I died at odds with somebody. And if there's anybody out there, if there's beef between us, it's on their side. Listen, I'm a competitor. I'm a guy that wants to win. It's always business with me, And, I thought about this morning, and I'm actually working on a song about this. And the title of it is If I Could Save Just One. And I'm working on this and kind of been inspired to do that. I saw a video earlier today from someone else that's in recovery. And I thought about it. We've had so many things that have happened. I think about, life is long. And last night, I had trouble sleeping. I did. And I remembered this young lady that I met fairly early in recovery. I may have had a week sober, And for some, I thought about her in decades. And for some reason, like last night, it was never like, anybody I wanted to date or anything. But I just thought, man, I don't know, whatever happened to her, And so I could track her down on social media. And looks like she's doing great. Look, she's alive, and, I don't know all the details, but it gave me a sense of relief, because we lose so many people, especially when you've been clean and sober as long as I have. I mean, the chances of, 2 or 3, 4, 5 people from the same little group making it this long are pretty slim. And I remember, I won't tell you who. It's a name you know, most of you. But there was an incident here about 3 years ago. And somebody that I love called me. Not anybody related to me. But they were in a bad place. And they goes, man, I'm in a bad place. Can you come get me? And I went. Because I used to be that guy. And I went and got him. And I said, I'm going to get you, but I want to make sure all your drugs are flushed. You can't have anything in my car, And I got him to where he needed to be, and I just kind of hoped for the best. Texted him a few times, didn't hear anything back, kind of feared the worst, and all of a sudden I finally got a response weeks later that he was in treatment and doing well. And now he's married and got a kid and doing great. And the thing that hit me about that's kind of inspired this song, and I don't know who records it. I don't know that I'm good enough vocally to do it. But man, what if we could all save just one, right? What if over the course of your life that you were able to save one person? Think about what a difference that would make, right? In this situation here, there was another wedding and another child and another Christmas. And those are the things that I begin to think about what a grave responsibility that we have, those of us in recovery, and really all of us. And this man came to see me speak some time ago, and he cried the whole way through. And I didn't know, I worried that maybe he was in a bad spot again, and he came there needing help. And after it's over with, he runs up and he hugs me and he grabs me and he goes, "You saved my life." I get emotional thinking about that. And the truth of the matter is, all I did was give a friend a ride. But sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes when somebody's at their lowest, just the simplest, kindest thing could make all the difference. But I loved him where he was. And yeah, he had disappointed some people. But my friendship is not limited to that. I've disappointed a lot of people too. But I ask you, what if you could save just one? What kind of impact would that have on the world? Because, maybe if I can save one, then they can save one, then they can save one, then they can save one. And you begin to think about that. We always talk about, we focus so much on these macro issues. And let me tell you this, okay, and this may hurt your feelings, and I'm going to try not to cuss here, but I don't care. I don't care if it's hurt your feelings. You need to hear this. You are saving nobody by what you put in your Twitter bio. That's just virtue signaling. You are saving nobody by getting out there and arguing about politics on Facebook. If anything, you're driving people away. Would anybody think that you are a safe port to dock in times of trouble when you're arguing over things that you have no control over? You're not saving anybody. We feel like it. Oh, well, what's the latest cause? Let me go put that in my Twitter bio. I'm sure it makes you feel better, but you're accomplishing nothing. You want to help somebody? Go volunteer at the soup kitchen. You go work at a food pantry. You go down to the nursing home and you go visit with some of those folks and play cards with them. Go down to the homeless shelter. Drop off some clothes. Don't sit here and get all uppity because of the flags you got in your bio. Give me a break. I'm sure you mean well, but you're accomplishing nothing. And so I ask you, what are you doing to save just one? If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. Best way to do that is to hit up Roy Samanti on X at Dogmatic67. Just go ahead and give Roy a follow. He's not going to post pictures of his food and stuff like that. Just some Mississippi State stuff and that kind of stuff, But nevertheless, follow Roy, and you can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. You can find our great list available as a playlist on Spotify, also under the Dogmatic67 handle. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. Yeah, we love Campus Bookmart, and they love us back. But the main reason we love them is because they have the things we want. That's more Mississippi State merch. Mom, don't overthink it. The perfect gift is maroon and white. It is. Everybody in the family wants more Mississippi State gear. We love the Bulldogs. We love repping the Bulldogs. Make the smart decision. And you know what? You could be that mom that gets ahead of the game. Go ahead and do some Christmas shopping now. Next time you're in Starkville, stop by and see their smiling faces. If you can't make it to town, or perhaps game day is a difficult shopping day for you, hit them up on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Those quarter zips are going to be very, very popular. Go ahead and get ahead of the game now, right? Some early Christmas presents wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings. We've been really good this year anyway, right? We deserve a good Christmas. So, Mom, go ahead and make that happen. All right. Some recruiting news, big news on the Mississippi State men's basketball front. Bulldogs pick up one big commitment. We think they're closing in on another here in the next few days. But today, we'll stick with this one, right? We picked up a 4-star today, a 247 sports star, Jalen Collingwood. If you don't know much about him, you should. Finalists were Michigan State, Ohio State, and Mississippi State. Now, he did not officially visit Michigan State, but I'll tell you this. Anybody that Tom Izzo wants to offer a scholarship to, I'm all about that. I'm excited about that. There's some validation in the offer. The number 88 pick, a top 100 player in the country, announced his decision at the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel. That's part of the network of 247 Sports. And, so great get from Sidwell Friends School there in Washington, D.C., a 6'5", 190-pound small forward. Is a composite of 92, but a 4-star with 247 Sports. And had over a dozen offers. Some names had some official visits set up with several schools, but picks Mississippi State over Vanderbilt, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Ohio State, Arizona State, Boston College, Butler, Iowa State, Maryland, Murray State, Norfolk State, Oklahoma State, and Xavier, among others. Great get for Coach Chris Jans. And a lot of people talk about this team that we're going to put on the floor is the most talented one that Chris Jans has had. I don't know if that's true. I guess we'll see. But Jans and his crew doing a good job on the high school recruiting front too. And I think that's one of those things that you have to be excited about. Yes, the portal guys make an immediate impact, but you need to be able to have a core nucleus of players that stay with you. Not everybody's like Josh Hubbard. They're not. But as it stands right now, State with 3 commitments for the 2026 class. Colin Wood, of course, and then Willie Burnett III out of Springfield, Virginia, and Ladarius Given from John Marshall High School, a 6'8", 215-pound center out of Richmond, Virginia. Bulldogs currently the number 11 recruiting class in the country as it stands right now. And then we'll see what happens with a couple other guys. But we believe that State's closing in on another one a little bit closer to home. Hint, hint, hint. Here in the days to come. So that's something to consider too. As you get through your weekend, a lot to think about, a lot to get excited about. But it's been a big day of coverage over at genespage.com. And then last night, Mississippi State baseball picks up another top 10 player in the 2027 class. And it's pretty exciting to begin to think about kind of what's happening Mississippi State baseball. And again, we think we're closing in on a couple more commitments too. I think one could come as early as this weekend. Yeah, I won't give any hints there, but I'll just tell you we already have a story ready. Is that okay? Yeah. So last night, State picks up Kyle Mekich, a two-way player out of IMG. Considered one of the top outfielders in the 2027 class, but he also is a very good pitcher. And there are some people out there that said, hey, you know what? If you just want to be a PO, we'll take you there. He took official visits to a handful of schools, Auburn, Florida State, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. Don't you think Tony Vitello is sick and tired of Brian O'Connor already? And Tennessee's got a handful of commitments too. Obviously, they're doing really well. But most of those guys didn't have offers from Mississippi State. And as we joke, Tony's getting his fair share too. But how many times in recent years have we beat Tennessee head-to-head on kids? And I don't just mean kids that got interest and offers, but kids that actually took visits there. That baseball recruiting is not covered nearly as extensively as football, certainly, and maybe not even as much as men's basketball. But the reality of it is State doing a good job. Yeah, doing a great job kind of putting this thing together. And there's some names, some names that we've talked to that we think also will be joining the class at some point. Trent Buckley is a young man out of my hometown. His dad was a teammate of mine growing up. Hearing he's leaning more towards Ole Miss right now. State has got him scheduled for a visit later this month, but he has not been a guy maybe that's been maybe as prioritized as some others, but left-handed pitcher could be a two-way guy. That's one to kind of watch. But right now, I would kind of say, Ole Miss. His brother went to Southern Miss, so that'll be interesting. His grandfather's a huge Ole Miss fan. That always factors in some respects. But, State's going to get more than their share, for sure, when it comes to baseball recruiting. And I've shared with you guys in recent weeks how impressed I have been with the way Mississippi State has handled recruiting. I think we're recruiting at a level we haven't in a long time. And that's not to throw a shot at anybody. I just think that Brian O'Connor has done a great job selling his system, but also selling the amenities at Mississippi State. Duty Noble is not going to be enough to get the top talent. You've got to have a development plan in place. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to have a developmental plan in place. and then Dudy Noble, I think, becomes the tiebreaker. Does that make sense? So just kind of looking at this, State with now 5 commitments to the class, all of them highly regarded, all of them. And I think that's one of those things you begin to kind of think about as you work through all this. What's the emphasis on high school recruiting in baseball? When you look at what Brian O'Connor has done in Virginia, his players have done a good job of developing and have had the opportunity to get to Double-A a lot quicker. And, of course, a lot of this 2026 class was kind of already in place. But State's got 5 commitments for the 27 class. There's some other people out there got, 10, 13, 14, 15. But State, with 5 commitments, is the number 10 recruiting class. And, again, we're probably going to take about a dozen kids. But the average player ranking is the highest in the country at 13.4. Tennessee, the number 2 overall class, they're at 13.08. They got 12 commitments and 9 players in the top 100. State's got 5 commitments and 4 in the top 100. So do I think State's going to have the number 1 recruiting class? I don't know if you'll have the quantity of commitments, but from a quality standpoint, State's doing an exceptional job. Exceptional job. And there's some other players out there, again, that we feel very good about that we expect to be added to both the 26 and the 27 class. 26 class is not really highly regarded. There's some really good players in there. Martin Sheeler, of course, and Wilson Anderson, Dax Hardcastle, Landon Brown, Daniel Neighbor. Those guys are all big-time players. Not necessarily ranked that high, but I trust Brian O'Connor. But, he inherited a lot of this class, and there's some other guys that he has decided that he wanted to add. There's some guys that we've turned loose. All of that is kind of part of this, and every bit of it is okay, right? Every bit of it is okay as we kind of work through the process here. But I think you're starting to see in this 27 class the quality of players that Brian O'Connor is going to bring to Mississippi State through the normal recruiting process. All of that is incredibly important. So, again, let me preface, Mississippi State could add another big-time basketball prospect in the next few days. We're prepared. We have a story ready. And there are a couple other baseball prospects that we're, again, somewhat optimistic about. So for those of you that follow the recruiting efforts in both sports, I think you've got some more good news coming. So, again, we just want to make sure that you're aware of that. It's never just kind of have a hit and miss type thing. But it's clear to me that Brian O'Connor is not just chasing bodies, he's chasing future pro players. You got to have winning ball players, but you got to have guys that can develop into be something greater than they are today. And so I think what you're going to continue to see is that we're going to sign guys that have draft potential, and we're going to get more of those guys to come to school. And again, Chris Simonis and those guys did a pretty good job with that too. But I suspect where you're going to see the difference is I think the back half of the O'Connor classes are going to be better than the back half of the Mullis classes, if that makes sense. I don't think you're going to have as many guys come in here and just kind of flame out. I think you're going to, number one, not sign as many kids, but at the same time, too, the ones that come in are going to be guys more likely to stick around. Before we get into our final segment of the show, Peter Criss from KISS has issued a statement about the passing of Ace Frehley. Of course, Peter Criss, the original drummer and founding member of KISS. Criss shares, "With a broken heart and deep, deep sadness, my brother Ace Frehley has passed away. He died peacefully with his family around him. My wife and I were with him to the end as well. I love you, my brother. My love and prayers go out to Jeanette, Monique, Charlie, and Nancy, and all of Ace's extended family, bandmates, fans, and friends. May the Lord comfort you at this difficult time. As a founding member of the rock group KISS and in Ace's solo career, Ace influenced and touched the hearts of millions of people. His legacy will live on in the music industry and in the hearts of the KISS Army. At this time, I ask you all to please be respectful to Ace's family and allow them to grieve privately. To the KISS Army and Ace's Rock soldiers, my heart is with you all, broken. God bless, Peter Criss. It's interesting, references to the Lord and to God in that piece after, so many people for years tried to paint KISS as a satanic band. If you know anything about their music, you know that's not the case. And another interesting one, too, Tom Morello, one of the guitar heroes of this generation, says, my first guitar hero, Ace Frehley, has passed away. The legendary Space Ace Frehley inspired generations to love rock and roll guitar playing. His timeless riffs and solos, the billowing smoke coming from his Les Paul, the rockets shooting from his headstock, his cool, spacey, onstage wobble, and his unforgettable crazy laugh will be missed but will never be forgotten. Thank you, Ace, for a lifetime of great music and memories. And you can find so many different tributes out there from some of the greatest dignitaries in rock music of past and present, sharing their admiration and respect for Ace. And I think that's one of the things that kind of helps us through this, is that the people that we love and respect are sharing this period of grief with us. We're not alone in our grief. And, of course, we've lost Ozzy earlier this year. And now Ace, none of us are getting any younger. But many thoughts and prayers to everybody out there that will miss the great Space Ace. Fly high. Final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. The best place to stay in the Golden Triangle if you're bringing a large group to town, and you should. How many times have you thought about, man, wouldn't it be great if we rented a house? Well, you can. It's the old renovated country clubhouse out past the Highlands off 182, just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. You can do your tailgating right there. Got a full-service kitchen, the wet bar, the back porch area, the fire pit area, 6 bedrooms, 2, soon-to-be 3 baths, and plenty of parking. That's one of the amenities that maybe we don't emphasize enough. How many times do you try to get people together and there's just nowhere to park? It becomes a bit of a hassle. No worries here. Huge parking lot out there because you used to have a ton of golfers out there. So your guests will have plenty of room to park and a lot of peace and quiet out there, too. We've stayed there. We had a great time. Great time. Look forward to doing it again sometime. Now, Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, and when you do, the Facebook page for the Stark Vegas Clubhouse will pop up, and you can peruse the pictures of all the amenities available to you and your guest. Also, some booking options are available, Airbnb, VRBO, but if you want to save some money, I can help you with that. Book through the Evolve website and use promo code BSR10. That's Beautiful Steve Robertson, the number 10, BSR10. Gets you 10% off your stay. How many times have you come to town and thought, man, it'd be so great, instead of us having to say goodbye after dinner, we can just all go back and visit and hang out, and everybody can have plenty of time to just kind of get caught up? You owe it to yourself to plan that trip today. Be the linchpin in your friend and family group and make that happen. Kind of a once-in-a-lifetime top opportunity. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse. The best place to stay in the Golden Triangle. All right, let's go over some injury stuff. There'll be some updates. There will be an update, I guess, Friday night. And then, of course, before the game. So things will change a little bit. We've got some things that we believe are kind of more in focus now. And kind of want to share a little bit this with you. This was updated this evening. Today is October the 16th. It's my brother's birthday. And I forgot. So we're going to text him right now. And my sister Nikki, it's her birthday. They were born a year apart. So I need to do that. I'm doing that right now. And listen, don't tell them. But I'm just going to copy and paste the same message. Happy birthday, I love you. Right? How about that? I'm late doing it. And my sister Nikki typically is the first one to message me on my birthday. So I guess I will close out the day with that. With all that's gone on today, I've just been busy, and it's good to take a little time to do that. But, we've had an update this evening. And, again, game morning, we'll have another one. But let's take a quick look at what Mississippi State has had to say and what Florida's had to say, because they had 3 defensive starters on the initial availability report yesterday. I tell you an interesting thing, too. Le'Veon Moss from A&M, he's out for this Arkansas game. And Arkansas's got a ton of guys out. But, Le'Veon Moss, we've discussed that he wasn't quite healthy. He didn't look healthy. All right, so State has also had a new name hit the list. So out for Mississippi State is Fluff Bothwell. No surprise there. Will Whitson, Blake Steen, already out for the year. Reserve center Brendan Smith also out. Doubtful now is reserve offensive tackle Jakeem Shumpert Perkins. That he was not listed yesterday. Now, Isaac Smith and Albert Reese have been updated from questionable to probable. So what that tells us, based on Jeff Lebby's comments on Monday, is they were able to get through the Wednesday practice without any issues. And now as we finalize the dress list on Thursday, they're going to make the trip. I do think you're smart with Isaac Smith because Tony Mitchell played so well. We have been expecting Albert Reese to play really since he got banged up. We missed that A&M game. I told you guys then we expect him back for Florida. Well, that worked out the way we expected. Now on the Florida side of things, they got a bunch of guys, right? Now, they had, let me think, was it a dozen guys? Was it 6 and 6? Looks like they've got a couple changes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I've got 6 guys that are out, and a couple of those are running backs. Trayon Webb is out. Edge, L.J. McCray is out. Defensive back Aaron Gates is out. Running back Duke Clark is out. Defensive back Dijon Johnson is out. Defensive lineman Caleb Banks is out. Questionable, Jacoby Jackson, running back. Defensive back Cormani McClain, it's a starter. O.L. Devin Manuel, he hadn't played much. And then Tony Livingston. A couple other guys that were listed as questionable are no longer listed. And they were both defensive players, so we expect both of them to play. But if they were mentioned at all, they're a little bit banged up, maybe less than 100%. So that's where things sit as far as the injuries go. And I'm going to shoot off a text here to our crew and make sure that we get this this all happened here shortly. So, all right. So, really, I guess if you think about it, this is probably a best case type scenario for State from an injury standpoint. You all knew when we left College Station, Texas, that Fluff wasn't going to play this week. And even when Jeff Lebby came out that Tuesday and said, hey, it doesn't look season ending, we don't have a firm timeline, you and I both knew he wasn't playing against Florida. So really, as far as unavailable players, the reserve center is the only addition that you've had since A&M. And you get Isaac Smith back, you get Albert Reese back. And again, I think you're smart with Isaac Smith. You don't push that too much. But I know he wants to play. He loves this university. And Jakeem Shumpert Perkins hadn't had a lot of reps the last couple of weeks, so I don't think that State will be impacted from any lingering injuries. So again, that the open date is a good thing for us as those guys are upgraded. And I suspect by the time we get to Saturday, they're probably not even listed. You know, we're talking about Smith and Reese. So great development in that respect. So I think it's an important thing for us to kind of understand as we get ready to go play this game. As we mentioned on the Wednesday show, anything that is a distraction to your opponent is a great thing. Now, we had a media availability at Florida today, yesterday. Billy Napier spoke, as did an offensive lineman and others. We had a couple guys that spoke. But I'm going to tell you, most of the questions from the media, even though Billy Napier had a lot more about Mississippi State today, he didn't have much at all on Monday. Had a lot today, maybe a lot pushing it, but he had a lot to say about Mississippi State. But the players, and this is the thing, when these things get out, as they have, and I really think this is some donorship at Florida trying to kind of force Scott Strickland's hand. That's what I believe. Now, I don't think Scott Strickland needs anybody to remind him that things have not gone well on football. He knows this, right? Everybody knows this. I don't think Scott needs it pointed out to him, and everybody knows that football pays the bills. But I think there are some people that have gotten a little bit impatient. There were some people last year that wanted Billy Napier fired in year 3, And he had a good second half of the year, turned some things around. You had a little juice going into 2025. And then you basically stumble out of the gate. And so then those same people that wanted him fired around this time last year want him fired again. Because it's not Florida football, right? That's, at the end of the day, it's not about 1 year. It's about the totality of the program and the full direction of the program. Program is not headed in the right direction. As we shared on Wednesday, no Florida Gator has ever aspired to go play in the Music City Bowl. They're looking to get to the playoffs. They were BCS contenders. They were trying to go win national championships. And I would suspect that the Urban Meyer era has probably never felt so far away if you're a Florida Gator. But during this media availability on Wednesday, the majority of the questions were about Billy Napier and about blocking out the noise and those kinds of things. Are you aware of all these things? Well, if they weren't, they are now. These are reasonable questions. But you're constantly getting reminded of it. Constantly. Hey, there's talk out there that your coach is going to be fired on Sunday, win or lose. And the guys are like, hey, we're all on social media. We see it. And Napier said, hey, we've been dealing with this for 2 years. Nothing new for us. It's part of the game. We understand if you don't win, you're going to have criticism. And to be honest with you, I thought Billy Napier on Wednesday, it's about a 26-minute press conference. He gave 28 minutes on Monday and 26 on Wednesday. That's a lot, in addition to the teleconference, right? I thought he handled it with about as much class as you possibly can. He didn't get cagey with the media. He didn't get out there and demand that they ask different questions. He didn't refuse to answer questions. And they asked him, well, how do you deal with all this? And he goes, man, I get up in the morning and I get in the Word. First thing I do, I get in the good book every morning. And those are things that I think probably are somewhat grounding for players. Because when you're a player in times of adversity, you look to your leadership to figure out how to respond to negative stimuli, if that makes sense. If the leadership is panicked, the players are going to be panicked. And I don't get the sense that the leadership is panicked, even though there's been some reports out there that perhaps that they should be. I think that's interesting, right? So I share that with you because I do think it is a distraction. I don't think that maybe perhaps it is the distraction that some may think it is. Because I think Napier says it well. The Boo Birds have kind of been in their ear all but about half of one season, and that was the half of 2025. There have been people critical of Billy Napier basically since year 2. I mean, a few people didn't like the hire in the beginning. They were critical in year 1. But a lot of those fence sitters kind of jumped on the negative side there in year 2. And the proof is in the pudding. Or maybe the lack of proof is in the pudding. It just hasn't worked. So I think when you consider that and the fact that this Florida defense is very talented, but also apparently a little bit beat up too, I think State can make some plays. And I think when you look at the fact that Florida has not done a great job rushing the passer, I think that is one of those things, people say, well, Steve, you got to play A&M, Texas, and Florida. All that's true. But Florida is not pressuring the passer, at least not so far to date, the way that those other two teams have. I think that is important to consider. Again, not great rushing the passer. We hadn't been great rushing the passer either. But when you begin to work this thing down and begin to think about, that they've got 9 sacks and we have 8 and we feel like we hadn't had more, and then 6 of their 9 sacks came in one game against Texas. Now maybe, and I mean maybe, that means that maybe they figured some things out. We're getting ready to turn a corner with the pass rush. Well, until you go look at the team numbers in the Texas A&M game, and you talk about influencing the quarterback, A&M had 3 sacks. Florida had 0. We got a little pressure on A&M too. They got none. And so it makes that Texas game look more like an anomaly, more so than maybe a turning point. And I think that's an important thing to consider. Do we see a sense of reckless abandon from the Florida defense? Do they just kind of sell out and say we're going to get the quarterback? And if so, that's where Blake Shapen's got to read hot. And Blake Shapen's got to deliver a football. We got to make a play. I think the most important thing for Mississippi State is to survive this first quarter. As mentioned, routinely this week, Florida has scored on the first possession of 5 of their 6 games. They have been able to get out early throughout the year. In the event that State is within a score or tied at the half, I believe Mississippi State is going to win this football game. In the event that State has to start chasing the game in the first half, we could be in trouble. Because when you get up a couple scores, you can really play defense, right? That's one of those things you begin to kind of think about, how it all just kind of burns loose there. When teams have lead, they can take risk. When teams are in even games or one-score games, teams are a little more measured. You kind of pick your shots a little bit. You can pin your ears back when you got a lead. And that's what I think State has to avoid. We cannot continue to get behind the chains. We're going to need to run the football. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think all of us agree that's going to be one of the most important things that happens. We got to be able to run the football. And we went over some of this stuff earlier this week, but like in the loss to South Florida, it was about even. In the loss to LSU, it was about even. One of the few times LSU's outrushed their opponents this year, 96-79. They ran the ball really well against Miami. Didn't matter in the end. Miami ran it and outrushed them by 104 yards. They outrushed Texas above 100 yards. They win the game. They get outrushed by A&M. They lose the game. And so in the 2 wins, they have outrushed their opponents. In 3 of the 4 losses, they've been outrushed significantly. The South Florida game, there was a 5-yard differential in favor of Florida. So again, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. So in order for Florida to win, they have had to outrush their opponents rather significantly. And again, both of those wins, it was over 100 yards. So if State can control the ground game, I think you got to feel really good about it. That's the most important thing to me, is the team that runs the football successfully and protects a quarterback is going to win. And again, both of these teams, State and Florida both, have not been especially adept at rushing the passer. So if that trend continues, this is what the game's going to boil down to. And it's like everybody talks about the Florida defense, but then you look up and you say, you know what? They could have done a better job. They did an okay job. Could have done better. But the reality of it is this Florida rushing game is just been ravaged with injuries. I mean, Jordan Ball's an incredible back, but, like Billy Napier said, he's never met a guy that, wanted less carries, right? And so I'm sure he could use a breather every now and again, but he still wants to rock. But let's kind of break down this scoring thing, okay? We got a few more minutes together, but we've talked extensively about Florida getting out first. Well, what's interesting, in all but one game this year, they were either ahead or tied after one quarter. The Miami game, obviously, they don't score the first half of that ball game and they lose. But against Long Island, they're winning. South Florida, they're up 3-0. LSU, they're up 3-0. Texas, they get 10 the first quarter. And then A&M, it's tied at 14. First quarters have been good to Florida. They got 44 points. They've scored 130 points this year. 44 of them came in the first quarter. 46 of them in the second quarter. Now, some of these numbers are a little bit skewed because of that big blowout against Long Island, right? So you begin to kind of work this thing down. If you want to take that out, second quarters have not been good for them. They've been shut out in 2 of them, and they got 22 points combined in 5 games in the second quarter. So, again, they got stronger against LIU. Against everybody else, they've kind of maintained a little bit, except for A&M. Third quarters, they've scored just 30 points, and in fourth quarters, 14. So again, this goes back to really good scripting early on and some good execution. And when you have a quarterback that's struggling, that's what you want to do. You want to get them in a rhythm early. That's why I think it's so important. If State is within a score or at the half tied, I think we have the ability to finish. They have struggled to finish all year. And as said in their media opportunity on Wednesday, they even struggle on the back half of practices. And to me, that kind of speaks to the strength and conditioning aspect of it. So, again, only 134 points this year, and the majority of those have come in the first half, and only 14 in the second half. And again, it's just so interesting. You begin to kind of, work the numbers a little bit. Of course, that game against, NIU mattered, or LIU mattered. But when you begin to kind of pair it up and look at what they've done against Power 4 competition, it's even worse, right? You scored 134 points, but 55 of it was in one game, right? Right? We had an Alcorn State game too. So only 79 points scored in 5 other games. That works out to 30 in the first quarter, 22 in the second, 20 in the third, and just 7 in the fourth quarter. So against Power 4 competition, Florida has managed to score 7 points in the fourth quarter. Against SEC competition, Florida is scoreless in the fourth quarter. Got to survive that initial punch, got to be able to counterpunch and make it a game at the half, and then hope that our running game can win it for us in the fourth quarter. That's what we're hoping for. Maybe Kyle Ferry kicks the game winner down there. I've almost convinced myself we're going to win this game. And maybe it's the old school Mississippi State fan in me that's just kind of a little bit hesitant. But the reality of it is, I don't know that we could have gotten them at a better time. All this talk about firing the coach on Sunday, win or lose, and I don't care who you are or where you're from, it's gonna bother you a little bit, no matter who you are. If you hadn't done so, come float with us at True Rest, Float Spa of Starkville. I share with you guys all the time. I think it's for everybody. I think everybody would benefit, whether you have chronic pain or anxiety, or if you just need a break, or maybe you just want to do something different, right? We got you. Yeah, we may be able to help you. We've helped many others. My wife Dana was a registered nurse for many years, wanted to stay in wellness, but also wanted to get out of hospital work, and so now here we are, right? She loves what she does. She loves her clients. It's a great opportunity for you to just kind of have an opportunity to relax and kind of, again, when we talk about, hey, I'm going to take some time to myself, what do? You go get in and lay in your bed or lay on the couch and the fan's going, the TV's on, you're on your phone, you're still overstimulated at times of rest. Get yourself some true rest. Dial 662-268-7601 to speak directly to Dana. And even if you think it may not be for you, which I disagree with, I guarantee you know somebody in your life that may need a break, and you can buy a float package for them, or just buy a float. Maybe you've got somebody that's pregnant. Maybe you've got somebody that has had some medical issues, some pain, or just somebody that you love that you say, hey, I want you to go treat yourself today. You can order a float package. Call Dana today. She'll give you all the details. Again, 662-268-7601. Holidays coming up. You need to complete your Steve Robertson book collection. You can go to dutynoblebook.com and do just about all of that. You get signed copies of Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, Dogpile, and The Dude, and the personal memoir, When the Bottom Falls. A lot of people say, well, Steve, I don't do a lot of reading outside the sports genre. Someone may need that book. I encourage you to buy it for them. And come join us over at genespage.com. We're running a 30% off special now, but if you don't want to take advantage of the promo, you can get Paramount Plus included for free as part of your subscription. Nobody else offering that. Now, if you take advantage of 30% off, you don't get Paramount until the year's over. But you don't have to use that promo code. You could just sign up, pay the full rate, and then get Paramount Plus for free immediately. How cool is that? Super cool, right? I'm right in the middle of Season 3 of Tulsa King right now. So treat yourself and get the best coverage of Mississippi State athletics in the history of our fine institution. You guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday on the backside of this road trip to Gainesville. Jacob Bain will be making the trip with me. We'll provide full coverage of the football game at Theodore High School on Friday night. We'll give that coverage to you on Monday, but also too we'll have some cool stuff for you throughout the weekend from Gainesville. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.